Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Influencers Project. I'm your host, Craig Reynolds, and with me today, the main influence of this entire show being on YouTube and Apple Podcasts is Mr. Justin Oppman. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Craig.
Honestly, we talked about this before. It was going to be a photo project of all the people that influenced me growing up, and I was going to do a road trip and take pictures and make it a photo book with a little description on one side of how I met my friends or how these people influenced me. And I was going to give them as gifts. And then you said you should make that a show. And I thought, oh, that's a pretty cool idea, but I think I'd run out of, I don't know. I don't get it. And tinkering with what we were talking about, and you're like, yeah, you should do it. You can do it on Zoom. And then when you save it, it saves a file, and it was perfect. And you are the reason why this is what it is. So thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome. That just goes to show you what happens when you get on the phone with a friend and you're not just texting them, and you speak and you have a conversation and you bounce things off of one another, and then here we are.
And this is awesome. And this feeds my soul. This is such a fun project for me, and I love it. And it's, where they say, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. This is not work at all. This is pure enjoyment, and I love this. So thank you for bringing this idea. And I'm telling you, after we got off the phone, I went on Zoom and got an account and went to YouTube and established another account there. It was like, makes total sense. We're doing it. Let's go. So
awesome.
With your background, before we get to where you and I met, you grew up in the Chicagoland area, similar to I did as well, correct?
Yes. Yep. Northwest suburbs.
Nice. I grew up in the south suburbs. What did you do back in Chicago? How'd you get before you got to here? But what did you do back in Chicago?
Most of the same of what I do here in Charlotte. Television and video production.
Okay.
Did that for since '93, pretty much since I graduated from college.
How did you get into it? Is that what you went to school for, or is this something that was a hobby early on, which transitioned into something else?
I was always a movie buff. Took film study classes in junior high and high school, and some earlier in college, but I didn't. I was going to. This is going to come full circle today, by the way. I wanted to own a bike shop. When I started college, I absolutely 100% was going to school for business. I wanted to own a bike shop. And then as I got into taking business classes and realized how much of an accountant I was not,
yes.
And talking to bike shop managers that I'd worked for and whatnot, didn't seem that there was going to be a whole lot of earning potential there. So I floundered a little bit, and then I had an uncle that had passed away, but he was a cameraman for WGN.
Wow, awesome.
And he taught at Columbia.
WGN is a massive, massive network that they've got channels on every DirecTV and everything, right?
It's a superstation.
It's the
superstation. Yeah.
Covered everything.
Much like TBS was.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I missed that kind of stuff. Yeah. I missed that. Okay, Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
So I thought, I like film and stuff, that TV. Maybe I'll go and again, he had passed, but he taught at Columbia College in Chicago.
Cool.
His art school.
There. Yes.
So my dad and I decided to go to an open house. Why not, right? My dad's like, well, let's go to an open house. Okay. So I go to the film department, 9th floor, everyone's in black. Go to the 14th floor, the television department, everyone's in plaid. Like, these are my people. So I went to both open houses, and then my dad and I had lunch afterwards. And as we talked, he goes, well, what do you think? I go, well, I think that I don't want to leave Chicago and I want to have a job. So television department.
Right.
And it was one of the first times he's like, I think that's a good decision. So I figured out a way to pay for it and never looked back.
And out of college, what was your first job?
I got a job at the station I interned at Sports Channel Chicago.
Nice. That sounds like a nice solid path. But since then, you've branched off and you've done more freelance stuff, and you finally left Chicago. What got you out of Chicago?
My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife of 11 years, 12 years, is she just didn't want to be in the cold anymore. So we looked at a map. We looked at a map and said, and she does hair and makeup. So we looked at a map and decided, where can we go where we can both find work that's not New York, LA, or Miami? And we figured that we could both probably earn a decent living here. And I had some family up in the mountains, so that was a little bit of a motivation, but we just decided to pack it up and move.
And why not New York, LA, or Miami? What was wrong with those choices?
New York's still cold.
Yeah, true.
LA is just all you do is work. It's all about work. Everyone that you know is in the business. Everyone that you know wants to be in the business. So it's just all too much. Plus, if you want to buy a house, forget it.
Yeah, right.
It just wasn't going to happen. And for me, she had done Miami before for years, off and on, traveling back and forth. Mm-hmm. And I did not want to be in Florida. So
okay, there's a lot of wild weather down there for me. Yeah, good spot. It's right in between, right? You can still get to New York if you need to.
Right. No blizzards, no hurricanes,
right.
Fairly few tornadoes. The Piedmont is pretty safe. This is a pretty safe place.
It really is when you think about how the storms get knocked down by the mountains.
Yep.
We'll get that big rain that comes out of Atlanta because typically that's going to be on the east side of those mountains. But it's a really nice place. And I don't mind the 50 degrees average temperature in the winter. That was a big selling point for me when I got here. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have to shovel snow? This is perfect. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So you left Chicago, got to Charlotte. We'll fast forward a little. Well, actually, what did you first start doing when you got here?
Begging for work.
Gotcha.
I got hooked up with a couple of different camera guys. The big help for me was Steve Saxon when I moved down here, and he's still one of my good friends today. He needed a solid production person / audio person at the time. All freelance, of course, and it worked out. The first couple of years down here, I worked with him quite often.
And were you doing audio initially, or were you doing camera and then you kind of transitioned to audio? Because obviously you're a Renaissance man. You can do all of it.
Well, so when I left Chicago, I was doing more audio when I left Chicago, but that had been recently. Prior to that, I was operations manager at a production company. Before that, I was doing a little bit of everything. Before that, I ended up. So I'll do a quick fast forward. Sports Channel Chicago, I started out there in the traffic department placing spots in a programming log.
Sure.
Which almost made me quit the business completely. And then it was miserable. But I had a foot in the door there. So then I ended up being a studio camera person, and then got trained by all the wonderful people there to technical direct, do sound, lighting. And then in another relationship, we had decided to move to New Jersey. So when I moved to New Jersey, I worked for a sister company of Sports Channel Chicago, and they asked me if I wanted to run a satellite truck. And I said, sure. So I ran a satellite truck for a year and then did not like New Jersey and moved back to Chicago.
Okay.
Back in Chicago, I did another satellite truck thing for a little while. and then ended up back with the people at Sports Channel Chicago, which turned into Fox Sports Net Chicago, doing camera, audio, technical directing, and then got promoted there to operations manager.
What an amazing start with all the people that are teaching you so many different things and aspects of the business once you're inside of the doors. What great influences for you to really get out of the traffic section, but yet you've got all of these people that are lifting you up to not only make you better, but make the entire thing better. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah. And then all those things, one of the main people I interned for, the two people I interned for at Sports Channel Chicago, because I did start there as an intern, they were always just, hey, this job came up, or let me show you how to do this. Greg Bowman and Jim Corno Jr., they just really were always on my side during those early years of my career, for sure. And
the first time you and I met, you were doing audio, and I was hosting this little teeny tiny show called Ancient Ink.
Yes.
I don't know if it still airs on the History Channel, but I know you can buy it on Amazon, which is a bummer.
That was January of 2008, I believe.
I think so. Yep.
We were at the Tattoo Archive in Winston-Salem. With Chuck Eldridge, right?
Yes.
Is that his name? Yeah.
Yes. Something like that. Yeah,
I think by the way, 2 months later, I went back for my first tattoo.
That is awesome.
Of a chain ring, which goes back to another career.
Yeah. Well, let's transition to that. Yeah. Well, no, let's stick with this, because you're still doing TV today. I mean, as evidenced by your amazing setup that you have right now. You're in a studio, you're shooting on a 50 millimeter, you got a boom mic and everything else. You're so pro, you can't even not do this to the top level.
You know what? This came to me this morning as I was driving in.
I begged you to do this today?
Well, no, because I'm like, I'm got the laptop. I got my laptop. Like, I'm going to want to hear him better than that. So I'll figure something out. I'm like, well, wait a second. I've got an interface that I can just bring the camera into my laptop and use a real camera. So
unbelievable. It looks
Sony
incredible.
FS7 with Sony 50 millimeter Cine Prime.
One of these days, I'm going to upgrade my program to not use the computer camera, but something like that. So I'll be calling you to figure that one out too.
We can make it happen.
And I know we can. So talk to me about what you're doing now, because you're still doing camera audio stuff, and now you've done a lot of NASCAR stuff too.
Yeah, so after we moved here, in 2009, I got hooked up with the NASCAR.com folks. At the time, Turner was running that. So still friends with a bunch of people from Turner now. We were like family. So I did that for a number of years. Traveled, did 24 to 30 races a year for a few years there, just traveling with NASCAR.com doing audio. So we'd shoot interviews and whatnot, and that would all be edited and put on NASCAR.com. Some of it would end up airing on TNT during the summer six-pack when they still had races. And after they left, I did NASCAR.com for another year. Audio, still all the while still doing shooting and doing lighting on other projects, but that was like my main source of income. And then started working at a production company, MSA here in Charlotte in 14. I was the operations manager there, or field operations manager. I forget what my title was. Still doing NASCAR stuff. They got a contract with NBC, which I'm actually in their studio now. So we started doing a lot of stuff with NBC once they got a NASCAR contract. Left in 15 and 16 to go freelance again, and then ended up coming back in 17 to the production company, still doing NBC stuff for NASCAR, or NASCAR stuff for NBC. And then was still doing that until COVID.
Yeah. Right.
So now I'm freelance again, but still getting, work doing the video production and stuff for NBC, dealing with NASCAR. And that's I'm actually here today on Sunday. We're waiting for the pre-race show for the Cup race in Las Vegas. And all the while, I always wanted to kind of get back into the bike business.
And there we go. That is it. Let's go.
So in 2014, I came up with this idea of doing a mobile bike service, mobile van.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really do anything with it. Came up with a logo and stuff. And then 2017, I bought a new van and started outfitting it as a Justin bikes. So
and that has
pun completely attended.
Well, it's perfect. I love it. Justin Bikes. I love that. And it's been super successful too, especially now that the bike industry is overwhelmed with riders. See, look, there you go. With riders, and bike shops are sold out of everything. Companies are sold out until April. Like, everybody needs what you have to offer now, especially with the social distancing in place. You're going to the neighborhoods or the people and fixing their bikes on site.
Yeah, it was as soon as the video production stuff pretty much, just completely got cut off, like the second week of March. It was like done. All of a sudden, my phone started ringing, and I had done some things here and there with the business, and it was, I was getting calls and I was scheduling days, but then it was. Once COVID hit, I could not, it filled in almost completely where I was missing out with the video production.
Really?
It was really slammed. Yeah.
Whoa. I didn't know you were that busy. I knew you were busy, but I didn't know you were that busy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And awesome.
And then also helping out with, local shop needed some help. So I started helping them out. To build that relationship, and that went great. It's still going on now, and that's maybe something we can talk about after this interview. Some more information I've got there, but all positive. And so it's been interesting to completely get away from what I have been doing full time for the last 27 years.
Wow.
Makes me feel old. But it's like this other, passion, which, I don't need to explain that to you, what a passion bikes are. It's in your blood. If it gets in your blood, if you were a child in the 80s and you had a BMX bike, if it's not in your blood still, then you must have had a transfusion.
Right.
Because
yes,
it's in you,
Yep.
I can't get it out. I've tried to suppress it for years, and I'll tell you now, I walk into a bike shop, I don't care where it's at, I smile. I love bikes.
Absolutely. They're the best.
I just love them.
The coolest thing. And I love that. I hate what's going on right now, right? Obviously, no one wants to see what's happening in society with the virus and everything that's going on. But I love the fact that people have found bikes.
Yes.
Have you found yourself working on a lot of bikes for people that, I just bought this bike and I haven't had a bike in 20 years, but I got it because I'm at home and I can go out and ride my bike in the neighborhood now? Are you seeing a lot of that?
Not so much the new bikes, just because I'm more service oriented, so not seeing the sales of the new bikes, but definitely in the shop, there's a lot of people that came in that bought up all the bikes. People just bought them all the bikes. They bought them all. Yes. What I did find a lot was, this has been hanging in the garage for 10 years.
Right.
I haven't ridden this in 3 or 5 years or whatever it may be. And the most satisfying for me is when I get, family calls up. It's 4 or 5 bikes in the garage. They're like, we really need to get all these tuned up. We haven't ridden it as a family in a long time. And then, and yes, of course I'm getting paid for it. But for me, getting those 3, 4 bikes, however many it is, up and running, knowing that the family is going to take them out for a ride because I get texts and emails afterward. A lot of the time, thank you. We went for a ride today, or I follow up and ask them, how did everything work out? Give me a call. Let me know. Shoot me a message. Work's guaranteed. Is that gratification of that this family went for a bike ride.
Right.
They weren't riding before. Now they all went together,
right.
And the only time you don't smile when you're on a bike is going uphill. That's it. That's it.
Yes.
So,
well, I will say though, obviously we grew up in Chicago, it's flat. So to generate speed there, you just have to know how to pedal really well. But going up a hill, it's a different type of way that your muscles firing off. It's this big load. It's crazy. It's smiley when you get to the top, I'll be honest, because I'm like, yes, I did it. There's a sense of gratification going up that hill. During it though, no, you're correct.
No, not at all.
So you're giving back. Obviously, everyone has to make a living, right? So that's besides the point. But you're giving back in a way that you're getting families on bikes. Obviously, you've got a family. Your son rides now with you too.
Yeah.
So it's even closer to home because now you've got the same thing and you're helping people enjoy it from the same way too.
Yeah.
Can't beat it. So what's going to happen with the Justin bikes moving forward? Are you going to buy another truck and send that out to a couple of different locations? What are your thoughts or plans with that?
Well, I've got some plans in the works right now that not necessarily for another truck, but it's a possibility, some collaborations and some expansion of that business.
Very nice. And I like how you worded that. It's very clever and nondescript, non-committal.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of things going on right now.
I love it. That's excellent. And as far as TV goes, what do you see yourself doing? How's that going for you still?
Well, that's all up in the air right now. It's hard to, right now I can make ends meet because of the NASCAR and the stuff that I'm doing in this studio in a few hours.
Right.
But on November 8th, that season is over.
Right.
And there, usually I'd be planning to go to, generally speaking, in this area of the country, November, the end of November gets slow. December, there's usually some sponsorship shoots with some of the drivers.
Yep.
Those have been going mostly Zoom lately. Some are starting to pick up and do some of that stuff. Beginning of January, I used to do the FCS championship in Frisco, Texas. Don't know if that's going to happen. Media access for a lot of these events that I have covered over the last 10 years is almost non-existent.
Wow.
So I don't know what's going to happen. Don't know.
Interesting. And the way that they've had to redo production now with a much smaller scale of people at the tracks or at the events, do you ever see them going back to 30 people in 4 trucks or whatever that looks like, just these massive groups of people? Or do you think it's going to go back or stick with, we're going to do it remote and we're going to have people in-house back at home and we're going to watch the races that way?
I think it's going to meet somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
I think that they've realized how much money they can save on these economies of scale and sharing resources. The NASCAR specifically was going to go this direction anyway. They just ended up doing it a lot sooner than they had planned out of necessity. It was all to save money. A lot of money gets spent,
Sure.
on covering that sport in particular. But just in general, like covering college sports right now, you can't even go to the campuses.
Right.
You're not, I mean, even if you're going for ESPN, it's like they put you into like one spot and you can't move from here. No.
Really?
Stay right here. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, think about the NBA bubble. You know, I have friends that went and did that, and one of them has been away from home and his family for over a month. So, you know, another one went for 3 weeks, 3 weeks, and then went home. But that's for everyone's safety.
Right. Right.
But I think I think it's going to get closer to where it was before, but I don't know that it's ever going to be the same. I don't know if people are going to be willing to spend the money that they were spending before. Maybe even for the concern that this might happen again down the road.
Right. Well, I think
you've got all these things in place. Then if you've got all this stuff in place, then you can deal with less. I mean, not to discount the Zoom because we're on it now, but you know, I think this is wearing on some people who are seeing it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's why I had to set this camera
up. And you change it up a little bit, yeah. Well,
right.
I think you know as well as I do, when money is being saved, it's not necessarily being saved, but being reallocated somewhere else.
Yes and no, because across the board, and not to get too much into this, but ad revenue is like way down. Ad revenue is way down.
Sure.
Sponsors bailed on all kinds of broadcasts and productions and streaming, whatever it may be. A lot of money is gone that just isn't there anymore. So everyone needs to be aware of where and how much they're spending.
So do you think it'll be in terms of getting that ad revenue back, they're going to have to be a little more creative and rates are going to change after this? Because this might be like a reset. Like we were spending $8 million on this show now, but now we're only willing to spend $2 million because we saw how good it was without the $8 million there.
Right. That I'm not sure.
What's the value, you know?
Right. I mean, I think the value is still going to be the eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
How many eyeballs they can get on it, how many clicks they can get. You know, all those same variables and barometers for valuing the programming. I don't think that's going to change necessarily. I do think that, as you said, that some of the values might go down because people are going to realize that they actually got away with doing it for that amount of money. Yeah. And it looked okay. You know, I am a big believer in production value. I don't necessarily like to, you know, some people are okay with it. When ESPN started giving their locker room reporters iPhones with a selfie stick and running in there, some people were okay with it. Made me nuts. I couldn't deal with that. I think that this is the profession, and it should be treated as such. The same thing with, honestly, with being a bicycle mechanic. It's a profession. It's it's not just throwing a bike together and putting it on the sales floor in a big box store and wishing people luck. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, those bikes aren't necessarily built by mechanics anyway. They're built by people that also build the grills and the furniture that's there. Those bikes are shady, and I've seen some really janky bikes come into bike shops that I used to manage, and I tell them, take that bike back because you're going to kill yourself on this thing. Really? It's bad news. It's built wrong. Get it out of here. Go to the bike shops and buy a bike, people. Don't mess around. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I have worked on probably hundreds of those since March.
I guarantee
just of this year.
I walked into Walmart the other day. No bikes at all. I'm sorry, there was one BMX bike, and they have racks all empty. I love it for the bike industry. I love the fact that people are out getting some fitness and some healthy activities in.
Yes.
But you got to be careful with what you're buying. And I agree. There's production value, there's quality, craftsmanship that goes into things. How many people have told you, I try to adjust that derailleur. What bolt do I need to turn to fix it? Well, you just ruined it. So we got to start from square one, because a derailleur is nothing to mess with.
Yeah. No, if I had a PSA for the people working on their old bikes, I'd be like, please do not mess with your derailleur. Please.
Either of them. Leave them alone. Absolutely.
Well, don't even get me on the subject of front derailleurs.
Well, those are almost extinct now anyway, so we can almost forget about those, except for the older bikes. But
yeah, I just did a one-by conversion on a 1990 Fuji Saratoga touring bike.
Whoa.
Upright conversion.
That's
Paul brakes.
That's awesome.
I love it.
I bet you do.
Well,
listen, man. If someone if they're in the Charlotte area and need to get their bike fixed, how do they get a hold of you?
At Justin Bikes, just like it sounds. It's AD in front of Justin Bikes, or justinbikes.com. Any of those places, they can find me.
That's perfect. Well, Justin, again, thank you for the collaboration and giving me this idea to make this what it is today. It truly has given me a purpose to do the on-camera work that I love to do so much. So thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for your time today. It means a lot.
You are very welcome. And like I said at the beginning, I am thrilled that an actual phone conversation with a friend brought us here.
Me too. Absolutely.
It's awesome.
If you guys like what you're seeing, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. And if you're listening to it via Apple Podcasts, please subscribe there as well. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day. Justin, I'll talk with you soon, buddy.
You got it, man.